You're listening to NorthWoods Church Matters, a podcast of NorthWoods Church in Evansville, Indiana, where we discuss why the local church matters and things that matter to the local church. I'm your host, Matt Higgins. Hey, well, welcome to a post-Christmas edition of NorthWoods Church Matters. We hope that you had a wonderful Merry Christmas and you got what you deserve.
And very little hypothermia.
Exactly. We are actually recording this pre-winter storm, so we have no idea whether we're going to have services or anything else.
Oh, we're going to have them. Even if we're having them from our own houses on Facebook Live video, baby, I'm telling you, something's going to happen.
All right, so today we're gathered to talk about things that are happening in the new year in 2023 at NorthWoods Church. And the first thing we'll talk about is we have an emphasis this year on invitation. So why is NorthWoods focusing on invitation in 2023?
First of all, you're hearing something first. 2023, we are calling the year of invitation. And that's important for you to hear. We're going to be hearing it in the weeks ahead. One of the things that we've done in the past few years that we're going to continue to do is track gospel conversations. But not only are we wanting you to continue to have gospel conversations, which if you sit back and think about, that is you inviting someone to hear the good news of Jesus and how they can enter into a relationship with Christ. But one of the things that we've been thinking about is a lot of people need, if you would, an entryway into that conversation. For some people, that feels like jumping into the deep end of the pool. And so the shallow end of the pool very well may be, what if you just invite someone to attend church? And so we'd like to celebrate both. We don't want to in any way stop celebrating gospel conversations, the invitation to come to know Jesus. We want to continue to push that. But we also want to give you the tools and the ability to invite people to come to NorthWoods and to recognize that as you do so, we believe you're inviting them to a place where the gospel is going to be shared. They're going to meet other believers, and hopefully those believers are also going to push them towards Christ.
Yeah, when we began doing this, we were careful to define what a gospel conversation is. It was not just saying you need Jesus and walking away. It was sharing the gospel and the power of the Holy Spirit and calling for a response for somebody to come to receive Jesus. So it was pretty specific, but we realized there are a whole lot of people that are out there talking to people, maybe having opportunity to invite somebody. And we don't want you to feel like I failed because I didn't go all the way to have a gospel conversation. This becomes a way for, I think, a lot more people to participate and to get involved with seeing friends and neighbors and family come to know Jesus because they're inviting. Inviting is a really good thing to do, and we just think it will open up for participation for a lot more people.
Bobby, what would you say to the cynical person that's maybe hearing this and thinking all they care about is getting butts in the seat?
First of all, I would just say that if you've been around us, you would know we're probably going to be sending out those same butts to leave us. Okay, so our goal has never been to see how fast we can be the biggest church in town. And so if you just look at our history, that's not who we are. And that's the largest thing I would say to that. We're always looking for where's the next church plant. And that church plant that we would be investing in, we would be sending people out to. My heart, and I believe the heart of NorthWoods, is not how many people can you put into the building, but it's how can we see people come to know Christ and how can we help believers make a next right step. I don't remember this time in my life. I was 2-3 years old, but my family back during those days, my sisters clearly remember Saturday nights were filled with wine and penny poker. And my family's weekends were filled with camping. Church was never a part. Only time church was filled before 1973 was dropping kids off so that mom and dad could have a few hours to themselves. Ken Nolan, Ken Phillips pestered my parents to go to church. They pestered them and pestered them and pestered them until finally Ken Nolan and Ken Phillips' pestering invitation, my dad told my mom, we're going to go so that finally we can get them off of our backs. That changed the trajectory of my life. I was home 3 years ago, and I told my dad, I said, do you know where Ken lives? Ken Nolan. He did. I said, I need to go see him. My dad had no idea why. We walked into the house. I sat down with Ken. My dad was sitting near Ken. I just said, thank you. I said the same story because the invitation changed my life. So I think you never know what a simple invitation can do. So this is not about how many people we can have in our building.
Right.
It ultimately becomes about us fulfilling our mission, making disciples who make disciples. We're ultimately trying to see people come to know Jesus, grow up in Christ, and go reach others. And for us, it really is about ultimately who is sent. I think someone said a church should be measured not by its seating capacity, but by its sending capacity. And that's what we're trying to do, is not just, we want to reach people, but we want to fulfill the Great Commission, which is what our church is called to do.
How can people participate in the year of invitation?
So obviously inviting people, we're going to be encouraging that. We are going to have another display. It's not fruit related this time, but
Not fruit.
no fruit.
No fruit stand.
But we are having a display. We're kind of doing the slogan of it's a get on the ball. We've got bouncy balls, but there will be a display in the church where if you've had an opportunity to invite somebody to come to know Jesus, there will be a machine there. It's a gumball machine, but it's free. We're not trying to get quarters from people for that.
That was a mistake.
But we figured if we had a big thing of balls out there, we would have balls everywhere from kids throwing them around. So you turn once on the gumball machine. There is a green ball with a smiley face on it for if you've had a gospel conversation. So we're still encouraging those. But there are all kinds of colored balls, and they're just a display there, and you can turn once, it's free, drop it in the display. It looks a little bit like a Plinko board, to be honest.
I love Plinko.
Yeah,
Plinko's great.
Sure, Plinko's fun. So it has a little fun factor in it, but you can drop it in this display. Those things always build slow, but we hope that over the year, that kind of builds up. And to me, I think when we've had these before, at one point we had 1,000 ping pong balls in a display, and the powerful thing to me is every one of those represents a gospel seed planted where somebody has heard about Jesus, somebody has had the courage to share with somebody, and is praying for somebody to come to know Jesus. So people can put those in who are sharing the gospel, or they can put them in for inviting somebody, and feel free to stop by that display when you've had opportunity to do it. We're going to have invitation cards out. You can grab some and put in your wallet or in your purse to have available, and just use those to invite people. Yesterday, I was shopping. I was at a store, and somebody heard my email address, that it was a church, and she began asking me. So I invited her to come Christmas Eve. You have opportunities like that, and this becomes a way for us all to be able to participate.
Let me ask a question that I don't know the answer to. On the balls, are we using different colored balls for invitation in comparison to gospel conversation?
So yes, and there's a green ball. It's actually a glow-in-the-dark ball, so it represents that. But it has a smiley face on it, represents a gospel conversation. There are multicolored balls for inviting people to church. Okay. So we wanted it to have some color. It looks better with the color in it. And so, the green ball will represent, with a smiley face, will be gospel conversation.
I guess another clarifying question, is there a ball for every invitation that we're supposed to use? So in other words, if I invited 5 people this week, 5 balls?
Yeah. Turn the crank 5 times, grab 5 balls, and drop them in there.
Got it.
Yep.
Awesome. So here's a devil's advocate question. So are we saying that people generally don't invite other people to church if we're emphasizing this?
So a statistic that I read, Tom Rainer stated only 2% of church people invite an unchurched person.
Wow.
One study found 37% of Christians link their conversion to being invited to church.
Wow.
I think if you just ask us, did anyone ever invite you to anything before you came to know Christ, and did that have an effect on you? I think if you trace it back, the answer would probably be yes in a lot of our lives. In a book called The Inviting Church, The question is, how did you get to the church? 2% came through advertisement, 6% came through a pastoral invitation, 6% came through organized evangelism campaign, and 86% came through the invitation of friends and relatives. So most people come to a church because of an invitation, and if only 2% are making an invitation, then we're in trouble.
And people statistically are more likely to go at the holidays, at Christmas and Easter.
That's right.
Or the New Year, when people are making resolutions that they...
Yeah, it's surprisingly high how many people would go, and I think the caveat on that is how many would go if someone they trusted invited them.
That's right.
So it's not just invite random people, but if they know you, they know your life, and they trust you, they're more likely to come at that time of the year than at other times.
Yeah, we have found January to be a time that people are very seriously looking to make changes in their life. And because they're looking to make changes in their life, church is a part of that.
Yeah. January and August seem to be those times, the back to school time.
That's right.
Well, and I think there's still a whole lot of disconnected people from COVID stuff. I think the lady that I talked to yesterday was like, we just never went back after that. So some invitations can help people get reengaged. And she said, I want to be in church. I just haven't been. So
do we want people to invite other Christians to our church? People that...
That's a great question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Answer to that is yes and no. And so if someone who is faithfully attending a Bible-believing, Bible-preaching church, leave them alone. Do not invite them. We want to keep people who are in Bible-believing, Bible-preaching churches in those Bible-believing, Bible-preaching churches. Are there Christians who are attending churches that are not solid biblically? Yes. Are there Christians who have dropped out of church? Yes. Those two categories are the categories of believers that we would be much more excited about seeing if you would, quote unquote, transfer growth.
Right.
Okay. But I'm not excited about seeing people coming here who have been faithful attenders of good Bible-believing, Bible-preaching churches. That's not who we're looking for.
Yeah, and the key there is Bible-believing, Bible-preaching.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. We're not after those. Right. We don't want you to invite them.
Right. If you go to a Bible-believing, Bible-preaching church that is solid in the Word of God and you are disgruntled, our hope for you would be that you, as a peacemaker, reconcile with people and seek peace. 100%. And if there is no peace or ability for reconciliation, that's another matter altogether.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So let's turn a corner here. We have another new initiative in 2023 called The Gathering. What is The Gathering?
So The Gathering is something that came out of us planning for the coming year. And we were talking about small groups, looking at the coming year. And as we've looked at how our recovery has been post-COVID, we're pretty encouraged with how our attendance in our services have been. We're back to where we were pre-COVID. But our small groups really haven't recovered. And part of what we were doing was we were just a little bit of brainstorming. And I think somebody said, I have a bad idea. Mm-hmm. And it sort of started that way where Bobby said that he was going to do a small group and just add another small group. And he had a particular thing that he wanted to teach on helping people to understand core essentials to the Christian life. And we were making some plans for that. And then out of that, someone said, well, what if we opened this to a broader group of people? And then it sort of evolved from there to what if we had regular gatherings of people? And it came to be what we're calling The Gathering, which is on the first and third Sunday nights for the next season of small group ministry. We're inviting people to come to the church, gather around tables, eat a meal together, quick meal at the tables that the church will be providing for those meals. Some simple things like I think we'll have pizza sometime and we'll have some other meals, Mexican food or something like that. Gather around tables in 6 to 8 people. And then there will be a large group teaching, which will be broken up with activities and questions related to those. So there'll be large group sort of teaching and small group discussion and fellowship around those tables, prayer around those tables. I think that's sort of what we are envisioning this to be. And it really is experimental, I think, at this phase. We're just like, what can we do to engage more people and get them involved in experiencing community in our church.
Yeah. And so it serves multiple purposes. One is the fellowship or getting to know other people in the church. If you don't know people in the church, this is a great opportunity to do that. Getting to know people is an intentional activity.
Yeah.
You don't get to know people by accident. To get to know people, you have to engage in things where you get to know people. And so this is an opportunity for that.
And I think the other thing, Matt, is what we have found with groups is we've kind of gotten to a place where we have not been able to find leaders for new groups. And so for us, this becomes a way of taking groups, making them smaller, but having more leaders. And the hope is not to do away with small groups altogether, not at all. For us, the hope is to come out of that having identified several more leaders who can lead more groups and just expand the opportunities for people coming into our church to get into community with others.
That's good. And I think the opportunity to teach fundamentals of Christianity. And I think even if you're a more mature Christian or consider yourself a more mature Christian, it's always good to go back and to have a refresher or make sure you're firm in your foundation. And so I think it's good for everybody to focus on the fundamentals.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. I believe this will be good for our church. One of the things that I think sometimes people will say is that NorthWoods, I go there, but I don't know a lot of people. Well, I think if you want to fix that, the gathering will help that.
Yeah. Come to the gathering. I mean, come to the gathering, and then after we're done with the season of ministry, participate in a small group. Mm-hmm. The other way to get to know people is to serve.
Yeah, that's right.
For example, our youth ministry team is pretty tight because they serve together every week. Our kids ministry team is pretty tight because they're in the trenches with the little ones every week and serving together. That's so right. You get to know people by serving with each other.
Yeah, that's good.
So how can somebody sign up for or participate in the gathering?
I know that you can via the Connect card every Sunday.
Yep.
And I'm pretty sure that you can also use the
Church
Team app?
That's correct.
Yeah. Which, as you can tell, even as I say it, how familiar I am with the tech aspect of life. But the Church Team app, also you can sign up online.
Yeah.
It's really important for people to let us know that you're thinking about this because it's going to determine how many leaders do we need, how much food are we needing to order, those type of things. And so please, if you're thinking about this, kids, as an example, we're going to be designing both babysitting and children's ministry around this. So we need to have an idea about how many kids are coming. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
And so we need information. So if you're coming, you're bringing kids, we need to know.
Well, one of the fears we had was that people who are already in small groups just assume that they're already signed up. And we're not assuming anything. So if you're not currently signed up, you're not currently signed up. So if you could sign up on one of those ways on the Church Center app or through the Connect card, that will help us to know we're not just putting you in a group because you're already in a small group.
Let me just plug Church Teams real quick. A couple things that you can do on Church Teams that are pretty cool. On the app, you can listen to all of our media that we've got, whether it be the podcast or Sunday morning worship services. You can sign up for events, and then when we go back to small groups, there'll be information about small groups that's there. So it is a great app to use for a variety of different purposes.
What does it look like?
It looks like a little church building. It's got a white background and then blue and green church all wrapped together. Looks pretty cozy. Hey, what about small groups? Are we saying we hate small groups and we're never going to do them again?
100% yes, Matt. We hate small groups, and we are never going to do them again. I can't believe any church would ever consider doing small groups. That is, of course, Matt. Why would we ever do small groups again? Next question.
That was sarcastic.
Sarcasm.
Sarcasm. That's our love language.
Like I said, we're not trying to do away with small groups. And I've had people in my group that have said, we love our group. We don't want our group to go away, and we're afraid this is the beginning of the end for the group. That's not what we're doing with this. We may identify more leaders that start other groups and do that. But our ultimate hope is not for this to be the way we do small groups for here until the Lord returns. It is something that we're trying for a season to try to really especially engage people that have come in post-COVID who aren't connected with anybody. I mean, a lot of folks that have come in are attending, and we're so grateful that they're here, but we want them to be connected to other people either through serving or the gathering or both through small groups. It becomes a way for us to help them get connected and make this really their church family.
So one of the things that's been happening behind the scenes in staff meeting for a while that we're unfurling this year in 2023 is we've been working on a strategy or a pathway, as we've been calling it, to discipleship. And this really keys into our mission statement, which is making disciples who make disciples. But the question after you read that mission statement is, well, how do we do that? And so how are we rolling out this strategy? Can you tell us about it? And what do people need to know?
Because we are a Baptistic church, there's going to be 4 L's that we're going to talk about, one each week. This is going to be preached on the 15th, 22nd, 29th, and the first Sunday of February. But we'll talk about having a love for Jesus, learning from Jesus, living like Jesus, and leading people to Jesus. And if you sit back and think about that, all 4 of those are ways that you accomplish discipleship in your own life. And there are also areas where you can evaluate how discipleship is going in your life. There will also be areas that each week we will see how this should be happening in the family of NorthWoods Church. So we do this together. We do all of these together. This is not something that's being designed so that anyone is to be living as Lone Ranger Christians. And there are aspects of the Christian life that we're going to be pushing you towards. So an example of that would be loving Jesus, which will be preached on the 15th. We're going to talk about loving Jesus in the aspect of worship on that Sunday. And we believe that when you come and you worship the Lord, loving Jesus is something that should take place. And we'll do that. There'll be a very practical, hands-on, you can sink your teeth in example of how you should be living your life each week. And worship will be something that you'll see on the 15th.
Sweet. That's good. Anything you'd like to add to that, Darin?
I just think for us, what we've tried to do is simplify the overall strategy. Making disciples who make disciples is our mission. That's not going to change. But this becomes a way of putting really some defining factors on that, of saying, you can do everything that the Bible tells you to do, but if you don't love the Lord, it doesn't matter. So we're starting with love for Jesus. We're going to be talking about discipleship through learning from Jesus. We're going to talk about more than just what you know, head knowledge, but how you live it out, living like Jesus, how we serve others and care for others. And then it ultimately brings us to leading people to Jesus. We want to see people come to know Jesus. And the process starts all over again, where we help them to understand what it is to love Jesus and to learn from him and so forth. It is reproducible in that standpoint, where we're hoping that it becomes a way that people can think about, am I growing? Am I becoming all that Jesus wants me to be? And that helps us determine if we're disciples or if we're making disciples as well.
I love napkin talks. Anything I can draw out on a napkin because I'm visual, this becomes something that like you can take a napkin and draw it out. It's pretty simple.
That's a preview of things happening at NorthWoods in 2023, and we're excited about it and looking forward to have you guys as a part of it. Do you guys have any New Year's resolutions for 2023?
I haven't thought about it yet.
No, so I've been journaling through the scriptures. To be honest, this year I got sort of bogged down in Jeremiah. Jeremiah ate my lunch for a while. My biggest goal, I'll put it that way, for next year is to finish the Old Testament, which will be a big deal for me to finish Lamentations through Malachi and journaling the scriptures. And so that's there for me, just sort of personally. And I'm working on my doctorate, and I would love for it to be done in 2023. Those are the 2 big things.
I have a similar one. I want to finish up the doctorate this year, and we've been working on that at the same time in different institutions.
That's right.
And my goal for scripture reading is I'm a slow reader. So just to encourage people that are slow readers, is to start journaling the Gospels this year and to get through that. You don't have to go through an entire Bible reading plan where you read the Bible for a year. That's perfectly acceptable. Some people need that push. I don't like being pushed.
Yeah. Yeah. It's good.
Yeah. All right. We will see y'all later on. Thanks for joining us today.
Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Thanks for tuning in to the NorthWoods Church Matters podcast. If you'd like to find out more about NorthWoods Church, you can visit us at our website, www.northwoodschurch.org. Again, that's www.northwoodschurch.org. www.northwoodschurch.org.